Hello everyone! Want to know if a servant is good enough to spend your hard-earned quartz on? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to the FGO Gacha Guide. Today's topic servant is the goddess from the servant universe, Space Ishtar. We'll be covering all the points you can see on screen, but first, a nice fun little fact with Space Ishtar. Space Ishtar comes in 3 flavors: Young Sith Lord, Teenage Bounty Hunter, or Full-on Goddess Mode. Each one has its own unique dialogue, so she has tons of lines to listen to. So if you love hearing a tsundere be tsundere, this is the servant for you. On to my personal opinion on her. In my personal opinion, Space Ishtar is incredibly good. She's the best Avenger in the game. She's got a really strong 50% self-MP charge, incredibly good self-buffs overall, a strong MP, and is the only servant in the game that can change her MP type between Buster, Quick, or Arts. That means she fits into every possible meta that you can run. Space Ishtar is an extremely good servant with tons of versatility due to being able to fit with any sort of support. One of the best in the entire game. Now let's look at why, starting with her stats. Space Ishtar is a 5-star Avenger class servant, meaning she has 2 times effectiveness against rulers, is weak versus moon cancers, takes half damage from just takes half damage from moon cancers, and, does normal versus berserker and neutral versus shielder. Her attack at 90 is 12,612. This is one of the highest 5-star attack stats in the game. It is in the top 10, barely being beaten out by the other contenders. Her HP at 90 is 13,041, which is quite low, not quite the bottom 10, but it's pretty far down there. Looking at her hidden stats, we get to see that her MP gain on hit is 0.69%. Nice. This is above average. And as for her cards, to make use of that, her quick card does 4 hits, her arts does 2, her buster does 3, and her extra does 5. Overall, these hit counts are a little below average, honestly. And unfortunately, her arts card having the lowest hit means that her NP gain on hit is going to feel a little worse than it could. But overall, having a high MP charge on hit is way better than having a high hit count, so it will be okay. Looking at her star absorption, aka how easy it is to get stars onto her cards over other servants, it's only 29. This is extremely low, so it's hard to get her to get critical hits off. Her star generation is only 6%, also very low, so she doesn't produce stars. The one thing she seems to be weak at is setting up for some sort of crit setup or formation, but that's not really what you use her for. Overall, her stats come out to be a little below average, but she has stats where it matters, mainly her MP gen and attack stats. That's all that really matters at the end of the day. Now, taking a look at her deck in MP, her deck has 1 quick card, 2 arts cards, and 2 buster cards, our standard 2-1-2 deck that most servants in the game have. Looking at her noble Phantasm, Eden Shugra Quasar, Royal Crown Shining in the Primeval Universe. It is a 3-hit AoE Arts NP that deals damage to all enemies, increases the damage of her extra attack by 100% for the turn, and increases her own NP damage for 3 turns by 20 to 60%, and this activates before dealing damage. Now, I want to mention that you can change her card type to Quick or Buster. It will have 3 hits each time, but the damage scaling will change depending on which card you're using, where the base damage on Buster is lower because it's a Buster card, and the base damage on Quick is about even towards Arts because it's a Quick card. Just to point that out. This NP is overall very simple, but it does what you want it to do. It does damage, and the bonuses for it are do more damage. At the end of the day, do more damage is really what you want. This is exactly what a main damage-dealing servant wants to do. One who can loop consistently like Space Ishtar, especially with the ability to increase MP damage for 3 turns and stack that, is extra good for her. Next up, we have her passives, and boy does she have a lot. We'll start with Magic Resistance C, giving a 15% debuff resistance bonus. Independent Action C gives 6% more critical damage. Goddess's Essence A++, it increases her base damage by 270 and increases her debuff resistance even more by 27%. Avenger EX, which increases her MP generation when taking a hit by 22%, but at the cost of 12% lower debuff resistance on every party member except her. Oblivion Correction A for 10% more critical damage, and finally Self-Replenishment Magic B, which charges her MP gauge by 3.5% every turn. That's a lot of passives, and almost every single one of them are pretty good. This is one of the few servants where her debuff resistance from passives is high enough it actually matters. She has a healthy bonus in crit damage. Unfortunately, it's kind of hard to get her to crit due to her star gathering rate being low and star creation rate being low, but it's there. And gains a ton of bonus NP every turn, especially if she gets attacked. When you compare them to another Avenger that might have come out a couple months ago, Malnobu, man, did Space Ishtar get some way better stuff. Moving on, let's take a look at her skills. First off, we have Devil's Sugar. This will increase her attack by 10 to 20% for 3 turns, increase the party's attack, except for herself, by 10 to 30% for 3 turns, and grant the other party members charm immunity for 3 turns. This is a fine charisma buff for herself that's a slightly better buff on her allies. It's nothing that special, or nothing to write home about unless you're facing someone that likes to charm. Moving on, skill number 2, Venus Driver. This increases Space Ishtar's NP damage by 10 to 20% for 1 time, lasting 3 turns. And also gives her invincibility for 1 hit that lasts for 3 turns. And finally, and most importantly, allows her to change her card type between Quick, Arts, or Buster on her NP and have it stay that type for 3 turns. This skill is amazing. This skill is one of the best skills in the game. It is one of the greatest utilities in the game. You get to pick what MP type you want to use on her, meaning she works with any support in any meta. It's, like I said, it's honestly the best utility spell in the game that a damage-dealing servant can have. It means Space Ishtar is not only good now, but she's future-proofed. Whether the meta shifts to Arts, Quick, or Buster, Space Ishtar will be there with the right card type to make use of it. And finally, looking at her third skill, we have Multiple Starling. This charges her MP gauge by 30 to 50%, and has an 80% chance to increase her Quick, her Arts, or her Buster performance by 20%, and there is a separate roll for each card type. You might get all 3, you might get none of them. This skill is great. The RNG is a little unfortunate, yeah, but 80% is quite high. Often enough, you're going to get the roll. You're going to get at least one of them buffed more often than not. It sure makes you wonder why certain other Avengers who came out a couple months ago only get a 20% MP gain and a worse bonus on the same cooldown. Cough, 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 Malnobu, cough, 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 cough. Yes, I'm still salty. Anyway. With these skills and her MP, you can see Space Ishtar not only has the ability to deal good damage with all her self-buffs, has the utility to fit into any composition, has a really good self-charge, and can work with just about any supports out there. Despite not having class advantage too often, she still deals enough damage to be able to loop farm against just about anything with proper support. Like I said before, she is the best Avenger in the game, easily. So what materials do we need to level these skills up for her? Space Ishtar's a little expensive, sorry to say. As an Avenger, she only takes materials to level up her skills. So, per skill to max her out, she requires 10 Eternal Gears, 10 Phoenix Plumes, 12 Spinal Fluids, 12 Iron Stakes, 12 Gunpowders, 15 Auroras, 15 Black Beast Gallstones, and 15 Eggs. That means to max her out, that's 30 gears, 30 plumes, 36 spinal fluids, 36 stakes, 36 gunpowders, 45 auroras, 45 gallstones, and 45 eggs. While the numbers aren't super high on any of these materials, that is a lot of materials, including the dreaded eggs, which seem to be needed on every new servant that comes out nowadays. So good luck farming those eggs up, everyone. So how does Space Ishtar stack against her competition? Her competition as an AoE 5-star Avenger is Edmund Dantes and Mao Nobunaga, the Demon King Nobunaga. Dantes, when it comes to the Scotty formation, provides some actual good competition due to his ability to loop. Space Ishtar can also loop with the Scotty setup, so it's more of a use whoever you prefer there, although Dantes is a little slightly easier to get the loop off, while Space Ishtar will do a little more damage with a similar amount of resources. Maonobu, on the other hand, is hot garbage, emphasis on the hot. That desperately needs buffs, please, Delightworks. Don't let my poor girl have to suffer any longer. At the end of the day, Space Ishtar does more damage than Maonobu, loops better than Maonobu because she can't loop at all, and loops almost as well as Dantes can. And even in Maonobu's specialty versus divine enemies, Space Ishtar is dealing comparable damage, if not more damage. She is the Apex Avenger. Period. Now, if you roll Space Ishtar, the skill priority should look like this. You start with skill 3 because it's a good MP charge and can give all card type buffs. Then you go for skill 1 since it's a guaranteed buff and it scales better than skill 2. And then you go for skill 2 because it has most of its utility built in and the scaling's a little worse than skill 1. At the end of the day, though, you do want to max out every single one of these skills for her because they're all very good and she's a very good servant, which you should probably use a lot. Now, as for craft essences to equip her with, she's an AoE servant who can change her MP to any card color. This means technically any of the major CEs fit with her, with the exception of CEs focused on criticals. So, a CE like Aerial Drive for 10% Buster up, 10% MP damage up, and 50% starting gauge if you want to go Buster Run. One Summer for 10% Quick Up, 10% MP damage up, and 50% starting gauge if you want to go for Quick. Painting Summer for 10% Arts up, 10% MP Gen up, and 50% starting MP gauge if you want to go for an Arts setup. Look at that. These are the big 3 of the free CEs that you gain from events, and they all work on Space Ishtar. Kaleidoscope is great to set up if you're looking for looping and you have a max limit broken Kaleidoscope that lets you do it even easier than usual. And once Caster Artoria comes out, you can equip the Black Grail to Space Ishtar and she can loop with it in her arts form. She's one of the servants that's capable of it. And that gives a 60 or 80% if you can max limit break that CE, bonus NP damage, which is a ton of damage, allowing her to clear through things that a lot of other servants just wouldn't have the damage to be able to, even with arts looping. As for servants to group her with, it's very easy. Anyone except crit supports. She can change her MP color, so any support honestly works unless they're focused on crits. If you want to throw Merlin in for the Buster, go for it. If you want to throw Tamamo in for arts, go for it. You want to throw Scotty in Scotty's system, go for it. She is the most versatile damage dealer in the entire game because of her ability to change her NP type. So a quick too long didn't watch for everyone here. Roll for Space Ishtar. She's incredibly good. She's one of the best loopers in the game. She has good skills, she has high damage, she has a strong self-MP charge, she fits into every meta, she's future-proofed due to everything. Her only real weakness is not being able to crit very well, but that's hardly an issue when you just kill things with the NP. But if you need another reason to roll for her, I've got you covered. Very simply, 3 Tosakas for the price of 1, and 2 in skin-tight suits. It's the easiest choice you can possibly make. So, good luck on your rolls for Space Ishtar, everyone. I hope you get her in 1. If you enjoyed this video, check out my Twitch channel and all that. Thanks for watching, and good luck on getting your new goddess.